On today's programme, Ayrton Senna, how he won his first Brazilian Grand Prix. And we'll show you what it's like to be in Sao Paulo for the biggest show of the year. Welcome to Inside Track and welcome to Sao Paulo in Brazil, where we have just seen the finish of a classic Formula One Grand Prix. A brilliant race, plenty of excitement, plenty of drama, and it went all the way through from pre-qualifying, both qualifying sessions, to the race itself. We'll be seeing all of that during the course of this programme, but first let's have a look at the city of Sao Paulo in Brazil. Sao Paulo is the world's second largest city, the centre of Brazilian economic activity. Within the city core is an urban metropolis not unlike those in other major cities around the world, with its buildings of concrete and steel and traffic that never seems to stop. But Sao Paulo's heritage of attracting immigrants from all over Asia and Europe has also meant that many ancient city sections retain their cultural traditions side by side with the corporate giants. And within the city, many parks add a pleasant getaway from the hustle and bustle of Sao Paulo life. However, Sao Paulo has an unpleasant reality that it hasn't been able to cope with. The poverty that leaves many people living in conditions that have become an all too familiar sight. These shanty towns, or favelas as they're known, are scattered throughout Sao Paulo. This one only 5 minutes away from the site of the Brazilian Grand Prix. The Interlagos circuit, named after the late Carlos Pache. On race day, the area in and around the circuit is jammed with people all hoping to get a glimpse of their favourite driver, and there's no doubt about who that is.
Ayrton Senna.
For me, Senna is the best.
Senna.
That's Senna.
The current world champion has always been a driver of special talent, from his early days in karting right to his first drive in Formula One in 1984. Senna was signed by Tolman and scored a point in only his second Grand Prix. He'd been a proven Formula 3000 driver, scoring 10 successive wins to take the British Championship in 1983. Tolman recognised his talent, picked up on it, but could only keep Senna until 1985. That year, the often precocious Brazilian joined Lotus, where he took 7 pole positions and took his first Grand Prix in the rain in Portugal in 1986. Senna was on his way, and in 1988 he joined McLaren, a partnership that has seen him win world titles in 1988 and 90. Now in 1991 there's no disputing that Ayrton Senna is the man to beat. After taking the first Grand Prix of the season in Phoenix, the pressure to win in Brazil, something he's never done before, was incredible.
It's always good to be home, but it's extra pressure, of course. I like very much to win here if I can. I've been near to do it many times in the past, but for a number of different reasons we weren't able to do it. So let's hope this weekend we can do something better.
Some of the local papers and magazines are talking about a rivalry between the Paulista and the Carioca, Carioca being Nelson Piquet. Do you feel this rivalry at all, especially when you're here in Brazil?
No, I really don't have anything like this in my mind at the moment. I am fully concentrated on my job, with my team, with my people and my racing car to get the best I can do. And then we see in the end, but that's not bothering me at all. It's not important.
Ayrton, it was your birthday yesterday. Happy birthday belatedly. We had a bit of fun with the cake, and then a small accident happened. There's lots of stories going around. Could you tell us what happened?
Well, basically right in the middle of my pitch, when we joke about the cake, I had an envelope in my hands with some passes, and in the middle of the confusion, it disappeared. It was very sad because after all, I was in my garage, I'm in my country, and to have something like this happening is very frustrating, annoying, but and there you go. Everything is under control now.
This is a circuit that you have partly helped redesign, or at least advised on. Do you think this gives you a home advantage, an unfair home advantage maybe?
No, I don't think so. The circuit is the same for everybody. We try to do a good racing circuit for everybody, and I think it's a safe circuit. Has improved a lot, facilities from last year to this year. And now, the best car with the best combination, hopefully should do better.
Finally, are you going to win your first race in Brazil on Sunday here?
I don't know. I'll do my best, and let's wait and see.
Of course, here in Brazil, Senna is number one, but the three other Brazilian drivers were also under close scrutiny. Roberto Moreno spent 3 years just trying to pre-qualify in most Grand Prix. In 1987 with AGS, and then in 1989 with Coloni. But he finally got his chance with a competitive team by joining Benetton towards the end of last season. Quite a jump from one end of the pack to the other.
It's going to probably be the first time I ever raced in Brazil. After go-karts that I did in Brazil, I actually went to start my racing career in England in Formula Fords. So for the last 2 Grand Prix here, past 2 years, I have not been able to qualify. So this weekend might be my first Grand Prix or my first car race in Brazil.
Looking forward to it then?
Indeed, yes.
Maurizio Gugelmin ran his first Grand Prix back in 1988, and now with 44 to his credit, he knows what it means to race in front of his home fans.
The Brazilians, they really crazy about the cars, and they very similar to the Italian people, the same temperament, and it's perhaps because we don't have many very fast cars on the road here, and the roads are not that good either for those cars. So when they see Formula One, it's like something from a different planet, and it's very good for them, I think, to have 4 Brazilians doing reasonably well.
But besides Senna, the most popular driver of them all is 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet, a man with a firm grasp of what it takes to race in his home Grand Prix.
Now, of course, everybody here want to autograph, everybody want to get a little bit close, everybody want to chant a word a little bit. I think this is normal. When I'm free, I talk with everybody, I do what they want. When I'm working, it's a little bit difficult.
Some of the papers here are talking about the rivalry between the Paulista and the Carioca. Do you feel that at all?
That's been a long time ago. It's not, I don't think in Formula One, but it's in another categories we have this problem all the time. In my time, I came here a long time ago, 17 years ago, and I won the Brazilian Championship and the Paulista Championship here in São Paulo. As a Brazilian, as a Carioca, you know, and for sure we had a lot of fight in the press.
But you're enjoying yourself here in this atmosphere. I mean, this is very special, isn't it? So different from racing in Europe or a Brazilian.
Oh yeah, it's, people here always try to wait to get in the pits, always try to wait to jump the fence. It's a little bit like in Monza, in Imola, you know, it's, we are quite similar.
The Brazilian Grand Prix. More to come on Inside Track right after the break. As the teams prepared for the second race of the 1991 season, more than a few thoughts went back to last season's Brazilian Grand Prix, when Ayrton Senna appeared to be on his way to an easy victory. Right from the start, Senna powered into the lead from pole position that has become his almost permanent starting place. But not a good start for Andrea de Cesaris in a Dallara, who hits Jean Alesi's Tyrrell and goes off. The 2 McLarens led going into the first turn, followed by Thierry Boutsen in the Williams and Alain Prost in his Ferrari. But after the first few laps, Senna took an insurmountable lead and it looked like the race was his. Meanwhile, Boutsen took Berger for second place down the main straight. While Olivier Gruillard in the Fond Metal Osella went over Michele Alboretto's arrows and off. Prost chased after Berger for third place and eventually overtook him. Thierry Boutsen lost his brakes and couldn't stop when he came in for his pit stop. It could have been worse, but fortunately it wasn't. At the front of the pack, Senna went to lap Satoru Nakajima. But when the Tyrrell closed the door, Senna lost his nose gear. He had to pit for new bodywork, dropping him to third place. While Alain Prost jumped to first and stayed there to win the 1990 Brazilian Grand Prix. One year later, heavy rain clouds hung over the circuit for most of the race weekend. The on-again, off-again weather would be a major headache as teams tried to find the right setup. For Larousse and driver Eric Bernard, just being here to compete was a bonus following off-season problems with FISA. But a sixth-place finish by Aguri Suzuki in Phoenix, and the team had reason to be optimistic despite being underfunded and underpowered.
If you think at the whole problem before the season, the result in Phoenix is very good. I'm very happy. It's maybe the first point I don't put on my life. I'm very happy for these points because I'm very happy for the team because everybody worked very hard and without money, with a lot of problems, and I think it's a completely logical point for us.
Tyrrell came into the Brazilian Grand Prix with two cars that had finished in the top 6 in Phoenix. Their Honda V10 was as quick and reliable as they thought it would be, while the rest of the car proved to be easy to handle, with little or no gearbox problems, a plague that had hit so many other teams.
Brazil's a much more open, wider, more flowing circuit. Presumably you're going to let them off the lead a bit here, are you?
Yes, that's right. It's really, we've got the horsepower for this type of circuit, so I would expect them to qualify better and to race better than we did in Phoenix.
Can we take it that's perhaps a plan for the year to sort of feed it in gently and just keep upping the revs as the season goes by?
It's not really a question of upping the revs, it's a question of the drivers having confidence in the car to be able to use the car at its best advantage, and also the engine. Really, I suppose our plan really is to beat the Benettons in Brazil, to beat the Williams in Imola. If we do that, we think we shall beat Berger, but we don't know what to do about Senna.
Ferrari had looked good in Phoenix and were now on a circuit that suited the car and the hard-charging style of Jean Alesi. The Ferrari V12 had plenty of power in the high rev range, and the semi-automatic gearbox was all but trouble-free. Good preparation and plenty of practice would seem to be the ingredients necessary for a Ferrari win yet again here in Brazil.
Alain Prost has won here 6 times. Ayrton Senna has never won here. I presume that you're hoping that that situation will continue.
Well, the statistical point is not really in favor. Also, Ferrari won the last 2 events of the Brazilian Grand Prix, in Rio with Nigel Mansell and here in São Paulo last year with Prost. We hope to have a good result, but this year is very important also to always pick up points at the end of the race. So of course we shall go for a win, but we shall not be too unhappy if it happens like in Phoenix, where we get good 6 points for the championship.
What about Jean Alesi on this track? Are you looking for him to show his style here now?
Jean Alesi did a fantastic job in Phoenix, where he was very calm and very quiet, and he did a very good race. He was second a few laps from the end when he had to slow down for mechanical problems that has nothing to do with him. So we are confident that he is starting with a good mind and a good system of working.
But in the world of Formula One, where even the slightest improvement can mean the difference between winning and finishing second, McLaren have somehow managed to consistently find the right combination to keep them top of the pack. And there's no doubting that one of the major reasons for McLaren's success is the massive power at the back of their chassis.
Lots of new engines have appeared though this year, and the Honda V12 does seem to be king of the heap at the moment, doesn't it?
It's going to be a lot better. It's pretty good now, but it's going to be a lot better. I think there's room for improvement, but it's all we need to do the job at the moment.
It must be very difficult when you are so clearly a leader in horsepower and setting the car up to keep on pushing yourself to improve.
Well, I think there's plenty of motivation throughout the team to succeed, and it's never easy to win. This year's no exception, but we'll give it our best shot.
Yeah, but you said confidence is a weakness, but I would have thought with the lead that Ayrton had in Phoenix, complacency might have been a better word for it.
Strangely enough, when you do find yourself that much in the lead of a race, there's all sorts of strange pressures that come on you. It's very difficult to drive slowly, and there was quite a bit of dialogue between Ayrton and myself that was primarily taking place to help him pace himself, and just because it looks easy, believe me, it doesn't mean it is easy, and that was a tough race for various reasons.
For 1991, the biggest challenge to McLaren domination could come from the Renault-powered Williams team. The team that Frank built has come a long way in a relatively short time. Frank Williams has been in Formula One since 1969 and now has a museum which documents his 22 years in Grand Prix racing. In the early 70s, Williams struggled to establish himself, but in 1977 secured finance from Saudi Arabia and teamed up with gifted designer Patrick Head to make some of the most successful cars ever seen in Formula One. Over the years, some of the best drivers in Grand Prix history have driven for Williams. Carlos Reutemann and Alan Jones were two of the most successful, with Jones winning the Drivers' World Championship in 1980 in a Williams. Reutemann spent 3 years with Williams, finishing third in the Drivers' Championship behind Jones in 1980, and then placing second overall the following season behind Nelson Piquet in a Brabham. Keke Rosberg then became world champion in a Williams in the Cosworth-powered FW08. It was an exciting time for Frank, with 2 drivers' titles and 2 constructors' championships in 3 years. In 1984, Williams was powered by a turbo Honda V6, the beginning of a very successful era for the Japanese engine manufacturer and for Frank Williams himself. Between the end of 1985 and the end of the 1987 season, they were the class of the field as Nigel Mansell won 13 races. Nelson Piquet 7 and Rosberg 2. Piquet took the driver's title in 1987. A couple of lean years have followed, but now, in 1991, Williams is set to challenge for the drivers' and constructors' titles once again.
Frank, you've been in Formula One for many, many years. What do you think your contribution has been so far to Formula One?
Probably stayed too long if others are allowed to speak on this subject. I never thought about the contribution. Mainly, I would say that Grand Prix racing has done a lot for me. It's given me enormous pleasure and satisfaction. There's nothing else I want to do. And I hope that continues, but I never thought about what I've done for it. It's really the other way around.
Frank, you've had your ups and downs in Formula One, of course. One of the most colourful periods was maybe when you were associated with Saudia. Can you tell us a little bit about that period?
Well, you say colourful. I mean, it was purely a business speculation that we decided there's a lot of money available to sport in Saudi Arabia in the late 70s, early 80s. It required a lot of perseverance and patience. It was an interesting, not diversion away from normal business practice, but it's a different way of doing things down there, commercially speaking, and one had to follow those rules, and they, in fact, were fruitful and helped the Williams team succeed in its #1 goal, which, of course, is winning world championships.
You've also had an awful lot of drivers drive for you. Any fond memories, any highlights you'd like to share with us?
Well, I always think fondly of Alan Jones, not because he won a world championship, but he was a great guy to work with. The difficulty for drivers who followed him vis-a-vis this type of conversation is that I'm getting older. Maybe I belong to the museum too. But Alan was almost a contemporary, whereas Nigel was quite a bit younger than me. And whilst we have a lot in common, racing is also much more professional than 10 years ago. Indeed, 5 years ago is already way out of date.
You're one of the big four, as everybody calls the top four teams in Formula One. You've also got a history of R&D and advanced research. Your active suspensions, of course, and now you're doing your semi-electronic gearbox. Is this something that you think is important in Formula One?
Well, basically, the spirit for all of this and the push for this comes from Patrick Head. He has always believed that the difference between one Grand Prix team and the next should be its R&D expertise and ability to make and try new things quickly. And therefore, you've continually seen Patrick and his group developing items on the car that sometimes are a little different to other people's. Specifically today, you're talking about push-button gear change. We're not the first to do it. It's a major R&D exercise. We believe in it, and I'm sure Patrick will succeed in it too.
Well, the problem we have with anything new, and the gearbox is obviously new for Williams, is the learning process and how long it takes to get up to speed, and we have had a few problems with it. But, you know, I believe very strongly in Patrick Head and the Williams team, and I know that it will come on stream very, very quickly, and I hope that on Sunday we can prove that by finishing here in the points.
When you had to withdraw at Phoenix, did you ever get a niggling feeling you were dogged by bad luck with these gearboxes?
No, that's not bad luck. You see, dead certs are not bad luck. We knew we had a problem before we went in the race. Mechanical reliability is not down to luck, it's down to great engineering. And unless you have very good engineering, you're always going to break down, because that's the essence of Formula One. It pushes everything to the extremes. And you just got to have everything correct. And if you don't, then you don't finish the race. And as demonstrated in Phoenix, there was only 6 cars that finished. So there's 20 cars that didn't finish. And that's not bad luck, that's just bad engineering.
I have to say that definitely I feel myself more competitive now than when I was at the beginning of my career, because I got more maturity and I know better how to race when I have to attack, when I have to defend, and also politically having some experience behind is much easier to work in Formula One.
Is this going to be the year that you're going to win your championship?
Norman, this is totally unpredictable. We're not off to a good start. I've got no way of telling you, we hope. And there's some very good equipment in this garage. Unfortunately, there's equally very good equipment in other garages. What it does mean, however, is that this championship should be terrific, and that's good for business.
Interlagos. We'll look behind the scenes at some of the people and facilities at this circuit. But before we do, a little trivia question. Who's the heaviest driver in Formula One? Nigel Mansell, 80 kilos or 176 pounds. Safety is a primary concern for the organisers of all Formula One events, and the Brazilian Grand Prix is no exception. Proper facilities and the diligent application of emergency rescue techniques means that the drivers can be sure of prompt and competent attention should an emergency arise. Professor Sid Watkins is the Chief Medical Officer for FISA, and here presides over the practice session of an emergency driver extraction. With him, the race medical director, Dr. Renato Duprat. At Interlagos, the medical centre has first-class facilities, including 2 helicopters for immediate evacuation. There are 10 ambulances and 10 medical tents along the circuit, staffed by 20 doctors and nurses trained in emergency medical care.
This room is a shock unit with for helping burns and wherever serious injury. Besides here is intensive care unit with 5 beds with monitoring to give the first aid. We have a surgical center with 2 surgeries simultaneously. Could be neurosurgery, cardiac surgery, thorax surgery, general surgery, every surgery that it needs.
This map shows the distribution of ambulances and the tents in each place of the circuit. The hospital is here, maintained near the. If the accident happen, we can go in 30 seconds each part of the circuit.
But while medical facilities are taken very seriously, some things are just plain old fun at Interlagos on race weekend, like the annual mechanics bike race. Well, it's not just for mechanics, but they do comprise most of the field. And there's that ever-present competitive spirit that keeps the boys ticking. And just like in Formula One, shunts are sometimes part of the business. And while huge crowds gave their support, Nigel Sutton of Brabham won the race, followed by Ligier driver Eric Comas and the McLaren dietitian. While for some it was the ecstasy of victory, for others there was just the agony of defeat. And for the winner, the spoils of victory, a kiss from Bernie Ecclestone. On Friday, it was time for business and the first timed qualifying sessions. And the first time session, of course, that hour of intense agony pre-qualifying. Scuderia Italia got it right. JJ Leto was the quickest man, 1:19.5 seconds. Behind him, second quickest, Andrea De Cesaris, 1:20.15 qualifying for his first Grand Prix of the 1991 season. Just a fraction slower, teammate Bertrand Gachot, 1:20.8 seconds. And that means that at only their second attempt, the Jordan team have got both their cars through the initial hurdle. Also going through, fourth fastest, last of the pre-qualifiers, Emanuele Pirro, 1:20.56. In the untimed session, Nigel Mansell fell victim to the rain that was plaguing all the drivers and damaged the nose cone of the Williams slightly. Gerhard Berger was very lucky not to damage the nose cone of the McLaren a great deal in this wild spin, which just missed the tyre barrier as he came to a halt. Roberto Moreno took it sideways as well. Conditions were truly appalling. In fact, almost as soon as pre-qualifying had ended, the weather changed completely. On a damp and patchy track, John Alesi ended up on the same piece of grass as Roberto Moreno. One of the four Brazilians in the race, Nelson Piquet, managed to be sixth quickest in the first of the official timed qualifying sessions. Alain Prost, fifth fastest, so far yet to show his hand in Brazil. Nigel Mansell ended Friday fourth quickest in the Renault-powered Williams on a track which required bravery and commitment. Gerhard Berger managed to be third fastest at the end of the first timed session. For all his commitment, Jean Alesi couldn't get the overnight pole as he had done in Phoenix. The reason was that Ayrton Senna did to him what he'd done to Senna in Phoenix with a final blast in the dying moments of the session. Ayrton Senna then on provisional pole Friday night. After the first day's activities, Elf and Renault held a samba party for some special guests. It's all part and parcel of the race weekend and very much part of life here in Sao Paulo. But on Saturday it was back to business and the final day of qualifying. Ayrton Senna held the overnight pole, but he knew that he was going to have to work hard to keep it for the race. Nigel Mansell went out early in the session to take pole from Senna, 1:17.356 seconds. Riccardo Patrese was second fastest with 1:17.647. The Williams definitely a threat. Alain Prost was third quickest, 1:17.821. Ferrari moving up as well. That was underlined when Jean Alesi went fourth quickest, 1:18.069. And then Gerhard Berger stepped into fifth spot, 1:18.249. Nigel Mansell watched the action taking place on the track as Ayrton Senna took back his pole position, 1:17.282. Pole position had changed twice in this one session. Nigel Mansell prepared to respond and attempt to change hands one more time. Ayrton Senna in that familiar pose in the McLaren pit, sitting in the cockpit, watching the computer. But while all attention was on Mansell and Senna, Riccardo Patrese sneaked out onto the track and unleashed a flying 1:16.775 to take the pole position. With just one set of qualifiers left between the top contenders, Alain Prost went out on his final run, and Ayrton Senna was not far behind him. Held up by traffic on his flying lap, Alain Prost couldn't improve his time and finished sixth fastest. But Ayrton Senna found one of those clear laps, and a supreme effort gave him pole, 1:16.393. And alongside Ayrton Senna on the grid, Riccardo Patrese, which relegates Nigel Mansell back to row 2, third quickest. Ayrton Senna waved to the thousands of Brazilian fans lining the track on this qualifying day, obviously overjoyed to see their hero where they obviously believe he rightly belongs, in pole position. A 54th career pole, which left Ayrton Senna drained mentally, physically and emotionally.
The fact that Williams has demonstrated to be so fast, it really put me going, because I don't think under normal conditions we could have beaten them for a qualifying lap.
Riccardo Patrese continued his inspirational form by placing just behind Senna. Patrese showing Frank Williams that, like a fine wine, he just gets better with age.
It was close, but not enough. Anyway, I think I'm very satisfied with the performance of the team, Williams and Renault. I think they did a great job during the winter, and they provide a car that I think is going to be competitive for the rest of the season. That is the most important thing. And apart from that, today I drove well. I think I did my best. I couldn't go any quicker, so Ayrton did the pole. Congratulations to him.
But for Ferrari, many problems. This was supposed to be their kind of circuit, but after Saturday qualifying, it didn't appear that way.
Cesare Fiori, you're disappointed about today?
Well, of course, when you start in fifth and sixth position, you must not be happy, but we are confident because we have seen this morning with a lot of fuel in the car that the Ferrari was performing quite well, so we wait and see tomorrow what happens.
Your big rivals, McLaren, have got a new engine, and they seem to be getting more power out of it than the V10 last year. Do you feel you're falling behind a little bit?
We don't have yet this impression. We wait and see tomorrow the race, and then we shall come to some conclusions.
Jean Alesi said that he found it a little bit hard to drive the car. Is that an impression that you have too?
Well, they had a different setup, the two cars from Alesi and Prost, and apparently the setup that Jean had was not completely satisfactory. But now we shall try to optimize his car as well.
You know, today it was a little bit difficult because we had a good setup for race, but not good enough for qualifying. So we have to work a little bit more for the next race, for qualifying, of course, but we have to wait and see what will happen tomorrow in race.
Ayrton Senna on pole position with Prix beside him, Mansell and Berger side by side on the next row, and then Alesi and Alain Prost. We'll be back with more after this break. Next to football, Formula One is the most watched sport on earth. Mounting such an extensive operation is not an easy task. The host broadcaster for the Brazilian Grand Prix is Rede Globo, Globo TV.
How many cameras do you have here for the race?
We have 25 cameras. One on a helicopter, 3 in the cars, and more 21 cameras in all the circuits. That's it.
And how many people have you working here for Globo?
Today, 300 people. It's a lot, but 300.
And how many people will be seeing this?
In Brazil, I think 25 million. And all over the world, maybe 200, I don't know.
And finally, on a personal basis, who would you like to win?
Well, of course, Ayrton Senna, of course. He's my favorite. He's a terrific guy, and I hope he will win the race.
And in Brazil, the 4th largest country in the world, even a company as big as Globo can't reach everywhere. That's where radio comes in, and those colourful Brazilian commentators.
Informamos ao ouvinte do Brasil, ao ouvinte da Jovem Pan. Vamos ver a passagem e a volta completa do Alesi, para ver se o Alesi não consegue retomar, mas tá difícil, Cláudio. 1:18.7 contra 1:19.
But for those fortunate enough to get to the race in person, there are several ways to enjoy yourself at the Grand Prix. And there are several ways to dine. This is just one of them. And this is another. The exclusive Paddock Club, right above pit lane. The 122 staff members will dish out half a ton of meat, along with canapes and 150 bottles of champagne. It's the place to see and be seen, attracting the cream of Brazilian society.
Which is your favorite Formula One driver?
Quem é o seu piloto favorito? Senna.
You don't like Piquet?
Yes, I like it. I like more Senna.
And what about the other drivers, the non-Brazilian drivers? Who do you like?
Dos não brasileiros, dos pilotos, qual você mais gosta? Do italiano. Qual? Quem é italiano? Quem é italiano? Patrese. Okay, Ricardo Patrese. Yes, I like.
And who's going to win today?
Quem ganhar? Senna. Senna, yes.
What about Nelson Piquet? Does he have many fans here?
He have many fans, but he have not car, okay? So that's the problem of Piquet. I think he is better than Senna, but he don't have car.
Is General Motors interested in coming into Formula One as an engine manufacturer that you know of?
Well, I don't think I can get quite into all of that. We're doing a sponsorship here in Brazil with the Formula One race here. Very glad to be involved with it. In my own personal opinion, I'd like to see General Motors get more involved, but I really can't speak to when or how or what they might do.
walking along pit lane, some former Formula One personalities, including Wilson Fittipaldi, who among other things ran his brother Emerson's Copasuca team in the 1970s. He's here to support close friend Nelson Piquet.
What is your opinion of the top two Brazilian drivers at the moment? Who do you like best and why?
I think they are in the same level, Piquet and Ayrton. Ayrton have now the best car now, but he has one car faster than Nelson. And but I wait now. Nelson has a new car, and I am sure Nelson going very, very, very well. He proved now with this car. He has now. It's a good car. We know that, but it's not fast enough. And I hope with a new car, Nelson has a good chance to compete for the championship.
So you're a fan of Nelson Piquet a little bit more than Ayrton Senna?
I don't know if really more than Ayrton, but they are Brazilians. I like both too much, and maybe I like a little bit more Nelson.
Yes, I like to come. I see 1 or 2 races every year, and I like very much to come and see how Formula One going. I like very much.
Tell me, do you have a driver that you particularly admire right now?
I think Senna is probably the best driver I ever seen in Formula One since I started.
Even better than in your time?
Yes. Since '69 until today, since I see all the drivers in my life, I think Senna is the quickest driver I've ever seen.
Ayrton Senna sitting on the grid with one thing on his mind, winning. And we'll get to the race right after the break. Race day, and the changeable weather conditions had the team managers in a dilemma. Should they set up the cars for wet weather and rain tyres? Or should they keep the normal setup and stay on slicks?
Tyres. It's wet, it's not wet. Half of the team seem to starting with one kind of tyre, another sort of tyre. What can you tell us?
I think most of the Goodyear runners will start with dry tyres, which is the thing to be doing under these conditions, because the track is essentially fairly dry. Where it is damp, a dry line will very quickly develop, and a rain tyre would soon get torn up in these conditions. So the dry tyre is the way to start as we see it.
With 249 Formula One victories heading into this race, Goodyear know whereof they speak. But their competitors, Pirelli, have recently made a name for themselves with some new advances in rubber technology.
Now, last year you came on and you did very, very well, particularly on slow to medium fast circuits. Is this a pattern you're going to try and do again this year?
Okay, we have to say that our friends of Goodyear, they are supplying the most powerful cars. That was last year, and that will be again this year with McLaren, Ferrari and Williams. So obviously, in a slow circuits where the curbs are more frequent than the long straights, obviously the tires play a more important role. Therefore, if the tires is better, that means that they gave an advantage more frequent on curb than on the straights. That's why our advantage is more on the straight circuit than on the very long circuit, like for example here in Interlagos or Hockenheim or Monza or Spa, where really you need a lot of powerful engines. That is not our case. Traditionally, the width of the Pirelli tires is at least 1 inch less than the standard width of the Goodyear tires. That is our philosophy. And at the moment we are still running our 1990 standard tires that we didn't make an even more important reduce in the width. We are just using the same tires in 1990. Nothing prevents us in the future, for example, to present even a narrow tire.
Would that reduce the aerodynamic drag and therefore allow a slower engine or a smaller engine to go a little bit faster?
Yes, for sure it's correct. The gain in terms of aerodynamic will be very important, but in our opinion, the gain is not only on the aerodynamic side. There is something that affects also the tire's performance itself.
One of the very special things that Pirelli does is shave tires. Can you explain to us why they do that?
It's just a maneuver that our fitters do. That is to take away 1/10 of millimeter of the tread pattern in order to remake the quality of the compound that are in the inner sides.
But you will advise teams, and then it's up to the teams to take your advice?
Yes, we advise with the team. We advise our teams. We have a very close relationship all over during the weekend with them. Actually, the responsibility for the tire choice belongs to the teams, but you know, working so close for 2 or 3 days, you really, I mean, so far we never had a situation where we judge more convenient to use one kind of tires and the teams or the drivers makes another choice. Actually, you arrive at the same conclusion at the same time. That was always happened, but maybe will be an exception.
On the starting grid, just minutes before the start of the race. Normally a time where the driver's adrenaline is pumping and their nerves are on edge. For Riccardo Patrese, his wife Susie is a steadying influence. For Alain Prost, some water and a joke help him pass the anxious moments. For Jean Alesi, it's out of the car and a last look over the course. Nigel Mansell likes to close his eyes and have a nap. But for Maurizio Gugelmin, it's all he can do just to shut out the pain. In practice on Sunday morning, the onboard fire extinguisher had accidentally gone off, and up until half an hour before race time, he was being treated in the medical centre.
Professor Watkins, can you tell us a little bit about the nature of Mr. Gugelmin's injuries and if he's okay?
Fire extinguisher, it went off in the car, and he's got a little of a chemical burn on his bottom. So we're hoping that he'll be all right for the race.
Gugelmin was visited by fellow Brazilian and good friend Roberto Moreno, and by his brother Junior.
He's okay.
What did you say to him?
I wish him to get up soon and jump in the car. I think it will be possible. He's okay.
Gugelmin did manage to get in his car. There was no way he was going to miss his home Grand Prix. And now, here's a look at the entire starting grid. And for a look at what it takes to negotiate this circuit, here's John Watson, himself a veteran of 152 Grand Prix starts.
And here we are coming up to the start-finish line. At this point, Senna's McLaren is doing 186 miles an hour, and that's hard on the brakes and straight down into second gear for, in fact, Senna's corner. It's called the Curve de Senna. Then into this Curve de Sol, this long left-hand corner, third, fourth, fifth gear now, all the way to 13,500 revs into sixth gear. This is the second quickest part of the track, and again about 186 miles an hour into fourth gear. This very difficult corner with a lake on the outside, back up into fifth, into sixth gear now. Then on the brakes into fourth, this double right-hand corner. You listen, well off the throttle, just touching the throttle, then hard on the brakes into second gear. The first of these two very tight right-hand corners, holding second around the left, then picking up third instantly, and back on the brakes into second gear. These are very slow, a lot of push in the car, understeer. Second, third, short shifting third into fourth, and holding fourth up until the final left-hand corner, back into third, and hard on the throttle, third, fourth, fifth, and finally into sixth gear, passing those two cars gathering speed again, all the way up to 185, 6 miles an hour, crossing the line. No.
So the scene is set for the 1991 Brazilian Grand Prix, and we'll have it for you right after the break. And so to that critical moment of the start, and immediately, unseen by most race fans, Gerhard Berger hit trouble as his McLaren-Honda burst into flames on the start line just as the green light came on. While Senna streaked into the lead, Gerhard Berger was unlucky. Trailing smoke, he dropped back through the grid. Most of the rest of the field made a clean getaway though, especially Ayrton Senna, who led from Nigel Mansell through the first corner. Emanuele Pirro running on the grass through Senna's S, and it's Senna's race already. Senna in the lead from Mansell, Patrese, Prost, Berger and Nelson Piquet. Gerhard Berger still trailing a plume of smoke. His problem though, perhaps not as terminal as other people's, because he was not the only one to have trouble on lap 1. Gabriele Tarquini in the AGS went out on turn 1. Gerhard Berger was still in the race. In fact, as it turned out, Gerhard Berger's fire problems were over and things were settling down for him.
Yeah, I had a big problem on the start. My car started to catch fire on the start, and I had in the first lap fire on the floor, and I didn't know what's going on, so I just drive the car and was looking just in the mirror to see if the fire comes bigger or smaller, and suddenly it goes out and all the floor was burning, what I can see now, and I don't know what has happened.
Gerhard Berger though continued in the race. Ayrton Senna continued to lead from Nigel Mansell by just less than a second, with Riccardo Patrese third, Jean Alesi fourth, Gerhard Berger there in fifth place and Nelson Piquet sixth. Ayrton Senna's technique through the past couple of seasons has always been to open out the biggest gap at the front in the early stages of the race as he possibly can. He set out to do that once again here in Brazil. However, there was one person in the race determined not to let him get away with it, and that was Britain's Nigel Mansell in the Renault-powered Williams. Senna and Mansell, separated by this 1 second or so margin, drew away from the rest of the field, and the big gap was now between second and third, and getting wider. Patrese, Alesi, Berger and then Piquet. Senna worked at his craft though, and the gap extended gradually back to Mansell. Mansell struck back. His response was to close the gap, and it seesawed as the rest of the field struggled, racing for second place behind the two leaders. Alain Prost was reeling in Nelson Piquet. Maurizio Gugelmin finally succumbed to the pain of the freezing burns he'd received in the morning, while Satoru Nakajima succumbed to the vagaries of the Interlagos circuit and beached his car well and truly on the grass. By that time, Ayrton Senna was up with the back markers and Alain Prost had come in for the first tyre stop. A good one for the Ferrari team, and Prost back out to join the race, but he'd lost a couple of places in the process, and this race was to become one of pit stops and tyre changes. Senna at the front, meanwhile, held off the challenge from Nigel Mansell. Ivan Capelli couldn't hold on any longer and retired the Ilmor-powered Leighton House, as Stefano Modena also went out, making it a bad weekend all round for Tyrrell. It was still a good weekend for Ayrton Senna and for Nigel Mansell. And Riccardo Patrese, a distant third, didn't look too badly placed either. Senna still the leader, Mansell still challenging strongly in second place, and this is where all the attention in this race was now focused. While they continued to circulate though, others began that lonely walk back from parked cars all the way to the pit garage. Nakajima out, Modena out, and Ken Tyrrell's grand start to the season had come to nothing in Brazil.
The only thing I know at the moment about Sutura is that he went off the road. I don't know why, and Stefano Modena is a broken.
What happened?
Was my braking mistake.
The tube of the gear lever is broken, and I had to stop because I couldn't manage to put in the gear.
Now, was this something that was completely unforeseen, or were you having problems with this before?
Yeah, we never had a problem like this before. I mean, funnily enough, we changed that tube this morning, and probably is some fault, some defect on the material, because it's very strange. We never broken like this. I mean, we never happened before.
Disaster for Tyrrell, and perhaps also disaster for Ayrton Senna. The computer showed the gap back to second place Nigel Mansell as less than a second. That's just feet on the racetrack, and from the helicopter it was easy to see how closely the Williams was pursuing the McLaren-Honda. Senna managed to hold off the challenge though, and now we were into that area of possible tyre stops. The Goodyear runners were expected to make one pit stop somewhere after lap 20, but that was about all the information anybody had from any individual team. Senna continued to hold the lead, and Mansell made the brave move first, diving into the pits. The team were ready for him, but the pit stop was not without problem. While Mansell suffered frustrations in the car, the pit stop dragged on and on and on. Eventually he got going. Ayrton Senna was in the lead and had gained a comfortable cushion. Comfortable enough for the world champion to come in for a pit stop without the same pressure which had been applied to Mansell and the Williams team. In any case, the pressure wasn't a problem. McLaren performed their usual immaculate job and returned Ayrton Senna to the racetrack in double quick time. Senna rejoined the circuit, still in the lead, and still with a useful cushion back to second place. Riccardo Patrese came into the pits. This time, neither he nor the car nor the Williams team made a single mistake. He was out as quickly as Senna had been. And as he left, the pit lane got really crowded. In came Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger, leaving almost side by side. Meanwhile, Mansell was pursuing Senna for the lead of the race, setting fastest lap so far. Riccardo Patrese was pursuing Nelson Piquet for third place. And Piquet, who hadn't come in for a tyre change, was forced to give best to the fresh tired Williams. By now this had become a race of tyres. For Eric Bernard though, it had become a race of fires. He and the Larousse were out. But Alain Prost made his way into the pits for the second pit stop in his Ferrari. By now it was clear that tyres were a problem on the Interlagos circuit, especially for Ferrari. Prost rejoined and Alesi came into the pits. Quite clearly something was amiss because the Ferraris were going through their tyres faster than anybody else on the circuit. One pit stop was the most that the Goodyear runners had been expected to make. Both Ferraris had already made 2 stops.
stops for tires. Is that okay? Everything 2 pit stops for tires, okay?
We have some problems with the handling of the car.
Gerhard Berger now moved on Nelson Piquet, having succumbed to Riccardo Patrese. Piquet had no answer to Berger and the McLaren. He fought bravely through Senna's S, but Berger was away and gone. Piquet had yet to make a tyre stop, and perhaps now would be the time. Meanwhile, Ayrton Senna had a 4-second lead over Nigel Mansell. Mansell mixing it with the traffic as Senna carved his way through the back markers in traditional style. Piquet finally decided that a tyre change was needed, and Pirelli's top-rated team came in for a fresh set of rubber.
So far it's good. Now I don't know if it's the rain is coming, but so far I'm very happy.
How are the Pirelli tires, quickly? How are the tires doing?
You see.
No comment from Flavio Briatore there. Ayrton Senna still the leader of the race. Nigel Mansell still the only person in a position to challenge Senna. But Mansell picked up debris on the track, cut a rear tyre and was forced to come in for a second pit stop. This one too dragged on rather longer than it needed to have done. Mansell rejoined though and managed to retain second place. The gap between him and Ayrton Senna longer than he would have liked it to be. Ayrton Senna at last looked as though victory on his home Grand Prix was within his grasp. So far the Brazilian driver hadn't put a foot wrong, hadn't made a single mistake. In fact, Senna was scything through the field to the point at which he was now reeling in Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, who was placed 7th. Roberto Moreno came into the pits for his fresh set of Pirelli tyres. Piquet had dropped from 5th to 6th on his change. Moreno remained in 8th place. Eric Comas retired, another fire, this time in the Ligier, which took Comas out of the race. Piquet then 6th, Alesi in 7th place. It seemed that the Ferraris, with their handling problems and their higher rate of tyre usage, were in as much problem as the Benettons, who had delayed the tyre change perhaps rather longer than was necessary. Piquet then in 6th place, followed by Alesi in 7th. Chasing hard, but the gap between Alain Prost in 5th place and Nelson Piquet in 6th place, just over 5 seconds. While that little duel was going on, the duel for the lead was all over. Nigel Mansell's Williams spun when the gearbox selected the wrong gear and hardly got going before it lost drive completely. Nigel Mansell was out of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Once again, it appeared to be the semi-automatic gearbox which had let him down. This only its 2nd race of the season. There was definitely drive in the box after the spin, but it didn't last very long. To the intense delight of the Brazilian fans, Nigel Mansell began the walk back to the pits.
The problem we had
I went into the corner in 6th gear, I changed down to 4th, and it jumped from 4th to 1st gear. Then it locked the rear wheels and you saw it made me spin. I recovered the spin, got going again, pulled for gears, and there's no gears. The transmission, the actual gears in the gearbox have gone.
But the gearbox was working very well this time, wasn't it?
Up until then it was working great, yeah, but unfortunately when you lose the gears and it jumps 3 gears from 4th to 1st, I'm afraid it does damage.
And the fans, they gave you a heck of a cheer when you came out. That was fantastic.
Yeah, the fans have been great, and I think it was a super race because I was pushing Ayrton, but then I had a puncture in the left rear tyre. I picked up some debris on the circuit. I had to pit for a second set of tyres, and then at the end we were catching again. I mean, we had a great race. The team's done a fabulous job. I think we've served a little bit of notice that the team's up to speed. One thing we haven't got is reliability yet, although I hope my teammate's still running in 2nd place.
Senna's got something to worry about now with Williams, doesn't he?
Well, I think from the point of view of winning all the races, yeah. But obviously if he wins today, I mean, fabulous start for him with 20 points if he wins.
You were pretty happy.
Yeah, disappointed because we got, I'd say, up to about 59th lap or something. We only had a few laps to go. But I'm pleased for the team. We were competitive when we were running, and hopefully we've got some more speed to come.
Nigel Mansell wasn't the only one retiring late. Bertrand Gachot out with a fuel pickup problem. He'd been beset with a cracked exhaust all the way through the race, almost since the beginning of lap 1. But this was the final lap. Just over 2.5 miles stood between Ayrton Senna and victory in his home Grand Prix. Riccardo Patrese was catching up fast. Ayrton Senna had just 3. But in yet another supreme effort of mind over matter, Ayrton Senna forced his way round the final lap as Riccardo Patrese closed to within just over 2 seconds of the McLaren in the lead. Two seconds though wasn't close enough. Ayrton Senna finally achieved that elusive ambition. Victory in his home Grand Prix at Sao Paulo in Brazil. The checkered flag fell in pouring rain at the end of lap 71.
Yes, can't believe it. Shit, brilliant. We got the suit.
So the final result then, Ayrton Senna at last the winner, Riccardo Patrese second, Gerhard Berger in 3rd place, Alain Prost the 6-time winner in 4th place, Nelson Piquet 5th, and Jean Alesi picking up a single point in 6th place. For Alain Prost though, perhaps not his favourite race in Brazil, 6 times the winner and the victor of more Grand Prix than any other driver in history, and now a long way behind Ayrton Senna in the drivers' points table. Let's have a look at that now, because Senna has 20 points, Alain Prost has 9, Patrese and Piquet both have 6, Gerhard Berger on 4 points, and Stefano Modena has 3 points. But for the time being, it's Riccardo Patrese who's the man of the moment.
Well, I think that definitely it was a good result for us. We had to play the race a bit conservative because we still have some problem of reliability in the gearbox. So because of that, we ran only 5-speed gearbox instead of 6, just to have an extra gear in case of breaking something inside. And the car, of course, the performance was a bit worse than what we could have, but quick enough to finish second. At the end, I was getting closer to Senna, but he had some problems, but I had some problem too with my gearbox that was not working very well. So nothing, I'm very happy with second place.
You feel still a little sorry for Nigel?
I don't know what happened to him. Of course, he charged more during the race. I don't know what was problem. I think he deserves second place, but you know, this is racing. Sometimes you have luck, sometimes you have bad luck.
McLaren-Honda having all the luck in the Constructors' Championship, opening out a big lead already over arch rivals Ferrari. We'll be back after the break with a word from the winner of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna made it to the finish, but lots of people didn't. Aguri Suzuki didn't even start. Gabriele Tarquini went out on the first corner. Gugelmin succumbed to the burns from the morning practice. Nakajima, Capelli, Modena and De Cesaris all went out with a variety of problems. Out too went JJ Leto, Eric Bernard, Mark Blundell, Martini Comes and Nigel Mansell, giving up the chase for the lead with a gearbox problem on lap 59. Ayrton Senna on the podium though made a supreme effort to raise his arms and spray the champagne. After the race he had this to say about the problems which had beset him through those 71 laps.
Yes, it's a great day for me. I think comparing to this day only 88 in Japan when I won my first championship. I've been very near to win the Brazilian Grand Prix many other occasions. We've been always very competitive, but for different reasons we were never able to do it. And today is a memorable day in my career, in my life, and it's a super day. I'm over the moon.
Wasn't an easy race by the sound of it, or by the look of you when you finished the race? It didn't look that easy.
Well, I remember 84, my second race in Formula 1 with the Toleman in South Africa. When I finished in 6th place, I had muscle spasm all over the body, and it was the biggest pain I ever had in my life. Today I had something similar, but only my shoulders and neck, and so it was a tremendous pain by the last few laps. But the desire to win was so big that I kept going, and it was great. I had some difficulties with the gearbox in the later stage in the race, the last 30 laps. I think about 20 laps or so I lost 4th gear, 20-25 laps, and then I had to jump 4th gear all the time, and for that was requiring much more effort in my arms to control the car. And shortly after I started to have problem also with other gears, and 7 laps from the end I lost all the gears. I only had 6, was the only gear I could get. So I decided to leave in 6th gear, not try anymore engage in any other gear, and try to drive as quick as I could. And I was able to improve 4 seconds a lap from when I first had the problem, just by changing my driving style, and was just enough to keep away from Patrese and Gerhard. I didn't think, but with 7 laps from the end I was going to be able to still finish ahead, because it was much too difficult to drive a full lap in top gear, especially the slow sections. The high-speed section was not too bad, but the slow sections was almost impossible. And to complete everything, the last 2 laps started to rain heavily in some part of the circuit, and I nearly on the last lap went straight at the end of the pit straight. So it was a race full of memories, full of excitement, and it's something that you gotta keep in your mind for the rest of your life, for sure.
Well, 71 laps, absolutely packed with excitement. That, John, was a brilliant race.
Well, it certainly was 71 laps of torture, because Ayrton Senna really suffered very badly in the latter stages of the race. In fact, what we saw when the car was stopped in the back straight was stress and distress. During the race, his seat belts, which he'd had tightened down really tight because of the G-loads on the circuit, began to become very uncomfortable, and really he suffered badly from having those seat belts tightened so tight. The other thing was he only had 1 gear left at the end of the race. Now, to finish the race as he did and still win it with 1 gear, plus the discomfort from the seat belts, well, that's Ayrton Senna.
And Ayrton Senna takes his 2nd victory from the 1991 season, the winner in Phoenix, now the winner at last here in Brazil, and the Formula 1 circus moves on to Imola for the 3rd race of the year. We'll be there. Join us on Inside Track when we talk again to the people who matter about the things that count. The dust of Brazil had hardly settled when the smoke was rising in London on Wednesday as Benetton unveiled the new John Barnard-designed B191, a car packed with innovation and designed to include at some stage in the future a semi-automatic gearbox similar to that of Ferrari and Williams, and active suspension which nobody seems to have got quite right just yet. One feature that Tyrrell got right and everybody seems to be following is the raised nose with this anhedral shape to the wings. Armed with the new car, drivers Nelson Piquet and Roberto Moreno, who was present at the press launch, should at last become the competitive force during